Okay. Hello everyone. Actually, I attended my first PyCon back in 2019 in Karachi, and I only know about loops and if conditions back then. But I was really excited to know when I got to know that PyCon is happening again in Pakistan, and I'm extremely grateful and honored to be here talking about Python. So, about me, I'm a software engineer at Cargobase. It's basically a global company. They have headquarters in Singapore, and we have a product into logistics space, a B2B product, solving problems for shippers and providers. Other than that, I love talking with nerds like me. So I try to volunteer into these tech communities and have been a part and selected by Google, GitHub, and AWS to lead their tech community programs in Pakistan as well. So other than that, in the meantime, I contribute open source. Other than Python, I have been working with this open source architecture for microprocessors, RISC-V at one of the research lab. It's called MERL. And then I have a couple of projects in FastAPI and Python ecosystem. If you want to connect me, if you like my talk, you can connect me on GitHub. So about that, so we all know in this Gen AI and AI hype domain, we have Python booming these days, and Python is the second most used programming language according to the Stack Overflow Developer Survey. And when I adopted Python as my first programming language, like Sir Vakar here, a few of our teachers introduced us to Python for the first programming language. And when I was working on that, everyone told me, hey, you should start with C or C Sharp, because there are like a lot of concepts that you should be considering, and Python has all the built-in features that will spoil you. And someone showed me a meme actually, and I didn't got it, but I got to know about it now. So today's talk is not about which framework is better and which framework we should be hitting, and but it's all about which framework to use according to your needs and requirements. And a lot of big companies like Netflix, Reddit, Uber, like everyone uses Python for scripting, or like a lot of big companies are moving towards Python for the backends as well. So we are going to be covering how Django is a fully featured framework, how FastAPI, which is a recent most hottest framework in Python ecosystem, and Flask, how lightweight and flexible it is. So I have actually distributed everything, and we'll be comparing it on the basis of design principles, how scalable they are, and how easily you can build REST APIs using them. And other than that, how community thinks about these particular technologies. So first of all, Django, there is a really famous terminology with Django, which is battery included approach. And Django actually comes up with built-in features to ease the development, and it has a built-in authorization and authentication, and one of our favorite ORMs that we can set up in front of the relation database to interact with it, and then my favorite admin portal to interact with your database and all the users. And then there are a few security features like cross-site scripting and SQL injection protections with Django as well. If we talk about Flask, so Flask is one of the oldest framework, and I got to know about recent stat that I will be showing you later. And so Flask is famous for its minimalism and flexibility. It's lightweight, provide great control for and flexibility, and it's well suited for smaller projects. But a lot of people in the community, Python community especially, use it to deploy ML models and yeah, in the AI stuff, to shape it towards to the REST APIs. Yeah. So about the FastAPI, it has modern features and async support, automatic data validation. If you're a Python developer, you know you can assign anything to a variable. It doesn't restrict you if it's integer, it's a string or something. So it has automatic data validation in FastAPI, and then dependency injection. It's not actually a kind of feature, but it's more of a design pattern. They have syntax for it, and obviously asynchronous programming actually is built on asynchronous gateway interface, which helps to manage concurrent requests as well. And they have really pretty open API docs where you can interact with your APIs actually. And yeah, it's ideally suited for building large scale. Like one of the podcast that I was just recently watching by Netflix developers, and they are actually shifting their microservices to FastAPI to manage a lot of concurrent requests as well. So now let's talk about performance and scalability. With Django, Django actually offers pretty good support while considering performance in applications. Uh, it can require additional optimization for high traffic scenarios like caching or maybe fixing your databases and something like that. But it's still good. You can also use horizontal scaling to make it more better. But Flask, it's not a really battery included approach, so you have to be really careful with the code architecture that you're setting up at the beginning. And yeah, it can actually help you to manage high traffic as well. And then you can do pretty much horizontal, which is preferred scaling with Flask. And then while talking about FastAPI, it excels in high traffic scenarios due to its asynchronous nature, as it's built on the ASGI. And then, yeah, ideally for building APIs that need handle a large amount of concurrent requests, and then it can also come up with a horizontal scaling if you want. Okay, let's consider how easy it is to build a REST API for these frameworks. So first of all, let's consider how easy it is with Django. Django actually easy for beginners and also for experienced developers because it comes up with ORMs, auth, built-in admin, and pretty much like you can set up your project with single command and then start working on it. Flask has minimalist approach. You can quickly get started with it and give you more control over your architecture, decoding architecture. FastAPI, one of my favorite, is clear and concise syntax with type hints and data validation, which was missing in previous frameworks. And it focuses on building APIs. And it also comes up with like different libraries like Pydantic, one of the really cool library that you can use, and obviously OpenAPI documentation. Yeah, this is one of the difference that we can consider asynchronous programming support. So 3.1 onwards, Django has asynchronous ASGI mode that you can enable to handle asynchronous requests as well. But there are few things right now that you have to convert your synchronous code to async, sync to async while implementing any synchronous method. So they are still working on it, but it's pretty much good right now. While considering Flask, you can pretty much implement async features using different libraries such as async IO. But FastAPI is built on Starlet, which itself is a asynchronous framework and give you a lot of access to handle concurrent requests. So yeah. Other than that, if we consider security mechanism, Django comes up with CSRF protection, user authentication, and input validations. Flask, like by default, it doesn't have these things, but obviously there are a few libraries like Flask Security, Flask WTF for authentication and validation. FastAPI also doesn't provide really comprehensive security features out of the box, but you can implement all of the security features that you want for the authentication authorization using algorithms and different libraries. And so one of the key factors whenever we are working on a particular technology, we should know that if there is an error for a particular thing, there should be someone on Stack Overflow or somewhere that they are active and they have somewhere GitHub or Slack channel where you can ask your queries. So community is one of the major part that you should decide your framework according to it. So Django has like really big community. There are third-party packages, and there is a whole platform for DjangoPackages.org where you can find really good documentation for packages as well. Flask, the community is small, but it's usable, and you can still find answers and assistance through various channels. But FastAPI, really growing community. A lot of developers are young and super passionate. and you can find DOS, GitHub, and LinkedIn. The creator of FastAPI, the picture that I showed you at earlier, like yeah, this guy Sebastian, I got to meet him in PyCon Dubai. So really good guy. He's active like everywhere, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. So he's really active and he's managing everything by his own. So yeah. Okay, so there are few stats that you can consider, like Flask, Django, and FastAPI are amongst the top 10 backend frameworks that are being used by the community for the backends. Uh, and then this is the GitHub stars comparison. If you consider in 2022, the purple one is FastAPI, the green one is Flask, and Django was on the rise. Django is still on the rise, but FastAPI is still booming and competing Flask in this comparison because there are like a lot of downloads. And in 2023, it actually competed with Django as well. Other than that, I was really surprised by this comparison, how many people are downloading these frameworks using pip. So Flask has already been on the top like for like years because a lot of students, it doesn't mean that this framework, like this stack doesn't show you that this framework is better or something. It just means that it is being downloaded by many people. It could be students or something, but Django is still one of the most legendary framework, and a lot of big companies are using it for like years. So yeah, FastAPI is still booming. The green one is still booming in this. But yeah, now how you can choose the right framework, and it's actually I have a really diplomatic answer for that. So if you are building a feature-rich web application which requires built-in security feature, you can go with Django. If you need a simple custom API, you can go with Flask. If you need high performance modern API, automatic features, you can go with FastAPI. But the community, the Python community itself, what they prefer is if usually you are working with the hexagonal architecture, right, where there are multiple microservices interacting with. So Django could be your, we ourselves at Cargobase are using this type of architecture, that we have a main project on Django, and then the microservices are on FastAPI. We are shifting from Flask, like the previous services, to FastAPI as well, and they're doing really, really great. But still, there are a few considerations that you should follow that were covered, I think, yesterday in Mashood's talk about whenever you're implementing microservices. So it should be like really, really simple. So yeah, I mean, and other than that, if you are starting with FastAPI, sorry, I've been repeating FastAPI again and again because I've been working with it and I love this framework. So I have one open source project related to it. It's actually kind of, so as we discussed, FastAPI doesn't come with batteries included approach. So you have to pretty much initialize ORMs, logging, test suites, and everything like Dockerization. So I was facing this issue, so I managed to do like one kind of boilerplate, and it's been used by hundreds of developers in the Python community. So you can also look into that and feel free to contribute into that as well. So yeah, that's pretty much from my side. Yeah. You can ask question by the way, so just don't go with the picture.
Can you talk a little bit about the performance considerations? Is Django 2x slower than FastAPI? What is the performance of it?
No, actually, it's not. It's how you're using a particular framework. Like if you're maybe with Django, if you're using Django, if you're using caching mechanism in front of it, or maybe you're using indexing with your databases, so it can outperform a FastAPI. Same goes with other frameworks. Like it's about more the approaches that you're using with the frameworks rather than choosing a particular framework on the basis of their performance attributes. So yeah.
Hello, Raheel. How does FastAPI perform when you include all the batteries in it compared to Django? So you mentioned that Django comes with a battery included approach. So how does it
I mean, so far right now, I didn't feel anything that it is not performing well. But I found this really cool package manager. It is actually kind of replacement of pip. It's called Poetry that you can use while configuring your application. You can use it with Django as well. So what it does, it creates a .log file which actually manages all the versions of your libraries and everything. So it's I think 30 or 40% faster than pip. So yeah, it can actually solve your problem with that. So yeah.
Suppose we are building an Gen AI application which have around 2 million users. So, or more than that, like ChatGPT. So, as a performance based किसकी रहेगी?
It depends for which particular users you are building it, right? You can either go with Django or FastAPI. Including it, if you need a rapid development, so I mean, for me it would be FastAPI, right? Like if you are planning, because obviously Gen AI is something really flexible and it's changing like after a few months. So I would still recommend to set up it with not so big code base, but FastAPI is like you can develop maybe your Gen AI application in like 2 or 3 days because of its easiness of use. So yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned that your team uses Django and FastAPI and Flask. Do they enjoy having three different frameworks, or is it?
No, so we have actually shifted from Flask to FastAPI. Purely, so the company is around 10 or 11 years old, and FastAPI came in like 2018 or something. So there were still few microservices which were developed on Flask, and so the reason that I'm talking about FastAPI this much is that I was the person who had to shift everything from Flask to FastAPI. So yeah.
Was everybody really 25
Yeah, I mean they should be. I got a bonus by the way.
Cool. So even though Fast API has increased in popularity, but it's still managed on the shoulders of one person, Sebastian. So even if you look at commit, it's mainly him. So how do we interpret the health of like open source or Fast API moving forward? So it has this Sebastian maintaining all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a really good question. So I recently got to know the so it's really amazing that one person is managing everything. Like he is managing everything from social media to like comments and everything. But there are like a lot of people. Like if I talked about Starlet, there is one person, Marcelo. I think his name is Marcelo. He built that framework, and these guys are building this library which is Pydantic, and it's actually supporting FastAPI as well. Pydantic is a really cool library which actually transitioned from an open source framework to a fully funded like a company right now. So I think a lot of people finding it interesting, and hopefully in future it would be good that a lot of people will be joining a lot of passionate youngsters in this community. So yeah.
We have our last question.
Would you like to
Sorry, yes.
would you like to elaborate a bit about the scalability of all those three frameworks? Like how do they work, or which one is better?
I mean, it depends. It depends on your cloud, right? How you're managing it. It's never like you can never use a particular framework on the basis only of scalability, right? You can either do maybe if there is like few couple of users that are exceeding, probably you can do vertical scaling as well, which is not preferred by the way. But in the meantime, you can go with horizontal scaling, And yeah, right now Django is like really good support for scalability right now. So people don't face any trouble these days. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you.